Delahunty.
Tēnā koutou te whare. To the Minister of Education, tēnā koe. Does she stand by her statement that, quote, schools will therefore be given a guarantee that their staffing entitlement will not be reduced by more than 2 full-time teacher equivalents over the next 3 years?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, talofa lava, tēnā koutou. Mr Speaker, I stand by my full statement where I said, quote, schools will be given a guarantee that their staffing entitlement will not be reduced by more than 2 full-time teaching equivalents over the next 3 years as a result of the policy changes.
Catherine Delahunty.
Given her admission this week that the Ministry's modelling for technology staffing levels was flawed, will she guarantee schools that have been given a stay of execution will not lose up to 7 teachers at the end of the 3 years?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, I have not suggested that the Ministry's modelling was flawed, and no, I will not give a guarantee beyond 3 years. We are focused on raising quality in schools for all students over the next 3 years.
Tracy Martin.
Supplementary to the Ministry of Education, can the Minister tell us how much of the money saved by increasing public school class sizes will be redirected to the investigation, setting up and running of charter schools that only became policy since a former National Cabinet Minister became the leader of the ACT Party?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, the money that has been saved as a result of the changes that we are making, which are to focus on investing in quality so that student achievement can be raised, is being reinvested in quality for all schools and for all students and for all types of schools that will perform for them.
Catherine Delahunty.
Given that the modelling around technology teachers was flawed, has she checked whether the Ministry's formula for staffing is flawed in any other way?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, I reject the presumption in that question.
Catherine Delahunty.
Order, Mr Speaker, I asked if she had checked something and I didn't get an answer as to whether she had.
Order. If the member wanted that question answered, she shouldn't have put the first part into a question that she said, given that the staffing model was flawed, and the minister disputed that part of the question, and that is perfectly within standing orders. Catherine Delahunty.
How will her new staffing formula working party come up with useful staffing solutions when schools most affected, including the New Zealand Association of Intermediate and Middle Schools, have just announced today they won't participate in a group set up to axe their staff?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, the sector working group that has been set up is not focused on axing staff. It is focused on how we can ensure the continuation of the provision of quality technology curriculum. It is focused on whether there are any unintended impacts and how we might mitigate those. And it is in the context of providing a guarantee that schools will be protected from losing any more than up to 2 full-time teaching equivalents, because our focus is on raising quality to raise student achievement for all New Zealand students.
Catherine Delahunty.
Will her working party listen to children like 9-year-old Jade Christensen of Tauranga, who wrote to her yesterday saying, quote, we have enough resources to help us learn and play sports. I think this one-on-one time with teachers is much, much, much more important, unquote.
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, look, we are very focused on how we raise achievement for all students. That is why we are working with the professional leadership of the sector. That is why we are providing assurance to parents who may have been anxious. That is why the conversation is with professional leaders and with parents.
Speaker,
sorry?
I asked with
Is this a point of order?
Yeah, I asked whether
point of order. Order. Member must be called for a point of order. Catherine Delahunty.
I did. Point of order, Mr Speaker. I asked whether you would listen. Sorry, Mr Speaker. I asked the Minister whether she would listen to Jade's points.
If I remember correctly, the member asked whether the Minister would consult with students. If I remember correctly, that was the question, and the Minister didn't actually answer that The member went on to such as, so there was only one question, and the one question was whether the Minister would consult with students, and I think that probably should be answered. The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, as I recall the question, it was whether I would consult a 9-year-old student about changes. My answer was that we are working with the professional leadership of schools and we are assuring parents of what our commitment is, and that is to providing quality for all students of whatever age they are.
Before I call the next the member again, what's helpful is to actually answer a question, though. I mean, what the Minister has told the House is what the Minister wants to do, but the questioner asked whether the Minister would do a particular thing, and the Minister's basically ignored that, and that's the dilemma at question time, because that's what causes members to raise points of order that their questions haven't been answered. The question was dead simple, as asked whether the Minister would consult students such as a 9-year-old student. It would be very easy to say, no, we're not doing that, we're doing this. And the Minister didn't do that. The Honourable Hekia Parata.
All right, Mr Speaker, we are listening to the concerns raised by all New Zealanders, students, parents, professional leaders alike.
I thank the Minister. Point of order.
I apologise. Mr Speaker, I think yesterday and today your interventions have been helpful, and I know that with the technology developments we now get, we can now get simultaneous interpretation of the Maori language. I wonder, Sue, whether you'd look at a service where you could do that for certain ministers on an ongoing basis.
Order. Order. Catherine Delahunty.
Supplementary. To the Minister, when she told schools like Papatoetoe Intermediate, which will lose 7 teachers in 3 years' time, it was their choice how they cut staff, did she consider increasing class sizes to 40 or cutting technology altogether a fair choice?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, successive governments have provided a funding formula to schools. They are based on a number of aspects and responsibilities. Then the professional leadership of a school makes the decision as to how they will deliver the national curriculum and the trade-offs they will make.
Delahunty.
My question was, did she consider this a fair choice?
Well, in fairness to the Minister, the Minister was actually explaining there how it will work, and that is relevant to the question asked, because depending on how it will work, there may be other choices. And I think in this particular occasion, the member is trying to pin the Minister down to an unreasonable position. I think it's not unreasonable. The Minister should explain how it will work, which is what the Minister was doing. The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Well, Mr Speaker, as I have explained, it is the policy of successive governments that the government funds on a formula to schools in order that those schools can make determinations about how they will deliver their curriculum according to the specifics of their circumstances. That includes who are the students enrolled at their schools, what the particular interests of their community is, as reflected by their Board of Trustees.
Chris Hipkins.
Supplementary question to the Minister. Is it current policy for the teacher-pupil ratios for years 7 and 8 to increase at the end of the 3-year cap to 1 to 27.5, as she announced on the 16th of May, up from 1 to 23.36 as it is presently?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, as I announced yesterday, the impact of the ratio change was not intended to have an effect to the extreme that we have heard anxieties raised about, and as a result of that we have guaranteed that all schools that are in the 10% who may experience an effect greater than 2 will be funded up to 2 full-time teaching equivalents.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I think you probably know what my point of order is going to be. The question...
Order.
The question I asked was what would happen at the end of the 3-year cap, whether the ratios that she announced on the 16th of May would apply from the time the cap ceased. And she's talked about what's going to happen while the cap is in place.
That is a fair point of order. The question did ask what would happen at the end of the period of the cap applying. The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, this provision is over the next 3 years. during which time we would expect to see student achievement raised, which is the whole point of this policy. We will be reviewing this over the next 3 years, and there are a number of budgets between now and then that will allow us with relevant, timely information to make that decision at that point.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the question that I...
Order.
The question that I asked is it current policy for teacher-pupil ratios in years 7 and 8 to increase at the end of the 3-year cap to 1 to 27.5, which was the ratio the Minister has announced? She still hasn't actually addressed that primary, in fact, the only part of the question.
No, order. I think, in fairness, the Minister has answered that those decisions will be made as the policy progresses and the government reflects on the changes in student achievement that are achieved. And, in fairness, the member shouldn't be interjecting while I'm ruling on a point of order anyhow. He's been getting a fair bit of licence, and maybe he should just bring his interjections back a bit and his points of order back a bit. But I think that was not an unreasonable answer. The member asked about something 3 years out, and the Minister said the government will make those decisions as they see the impact of the policy develop. Now, that is an answer to the question. That is not an unreasonable answer to the question. Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, the issue that we have is I asked about the effect of current policy. Now, government policy changes.
Ministers I've listened to the member long enough. I think the member is trying my patience a little too far. The member is just playing with words. You know, had the member been a minister, he might know this, that to say current policy is actually irrelevant. You know, the government has made some decisions. The Minister has said they want to see the impact of those decisions before they decide a situation in 3 years' time. To argue there should be some current government policy about it, as the member is, I think is being unreasonable. Supplementary question, Catherine Delahunty.
Wasn't a point of order? No, supplementary.
Oh, is it a point of order or something?
No, supplementary.
Supplementary question, Catherine Delahunty.
I just was checking with my colleague. I couldn't hear him. Given the failed modelling in the technology staffing formulas, will she agree to a moratorium on all staffing changes until schools and parents have been consulted and she actually knows how many teachers are really needed?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, I reject the presumption that that question is predicated on.
Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further supplementary to the Minister. Will the cap that she has announced limiting the number of teachers any school may lose as a result of the changes to apply to Mr. Speaker, will the cap that she has announced limiting the number of teachers any school may lose as a result of the ratio changes to apply only to the teachers that are lost as a result of the ratio change, or will the cap also extend to include positions that may be lost as a result of the consequent changes to classroom release time and management staffing allocations?
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, what I have announced is that we will provide a guarantee that no school will lose more than up to 2 full-time teaching equivalents as a result of the policy changes.
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, that to some extent addresses the question but doesn't actually answer the wider issue, which is that when we're talking about FTE teachers, we're talking about the funding formula for schools. There is an additional funding formula around management positions and classroom release time, which is additional to that, and she hasn't addressed that part of the question.
I hear the member's point, and I accept the veracity of the question asked, but I believe the answer was given that the Minister has told the House that the policy change, the maximum teacher equivalent, full-time teacher equivalent loss would be 2 full-time equivalents, being the total impact of the policy change. Now, that has answered the member's question. And there's no interpretation. The member shouldn't interject. There's no interpretation. That's what the Minister said. Point of order, Catherine Delahunty.
I seek leave to table an email from Jade Christensen, aged 9, saying they need more teachers.
Order. The member is entitled to seek leave to have a document tabled. Catherine Delahunty.
I seek leave to table an email by Jade Christensen, aged 9, to the Minister, saying that they need more one-to-one teachers in her school.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is objection. Question number 6, Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Police and asks, What recent investments has the government made in the new police stations?
The Honourable Anne Tully.
Mr Speaker, today I opened the new Otahuhu police station in Counties Manukau. The $8.6 million facility is the second new station to open in Counties Manukau this month. And everyone in the project should be congratulated, as it too came in well under budget. Nationally, recorded crimes are at a 15-year low, and Counties Manukau Police have made a valuable contribution to this, and I take this opportunity to thank the local officers for all their hard work.
Supplementary question.
Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi.
Supplementary question.